Hello and welcome to Greek black metal review. Actually, the dual review because two albums. One from 2015 being the debut album and one of 2020 being the very recent album from early September 2020. So which one to go first? Obviously the oldest one, and that is called Sacrilegious Testament. This is a band called Katavasia from Greece and from around 2014. The band was kind enough not to only to send me the latest album for review, but also provide the earlier album. So there's a little bit of a reflection on comparing which way the band has gone since the first album. So I'm gonna basically try to review both of them here on Rauta. So this one is the first album. 5 guys in a band, roughly some 40 minutes plus, which are then listed there. And this is the CD with the booklet, which I'm going to show you. A couple of reflecting skulls, looks like metal skulls. This is not your typical booklet, considering it's not really one with opening pages, but kind of a folding one. Call it old school if you will. That's how I feel about it. And it has lyrics, some photos of the band, and that's it. Nice looking. What about the new one? Let's take this one also into unboxing phase before talking about the music. It's kind of a given, people who know anything about Greek black metal in the first place, that Greek black metal has more or less always had its own sound when it comes to creating that music. And that means so many of those bands have kind of a similar kind of a signature sound, if you will. Much like Norwegian bands, or nowadays especially some Finnish bands. So Greece is a special place when it has, when it comes to the certain sound, feeling, atmosphere, even pronouncing the lyrics. And this is no exception, and I think it's both good and bad. I mean, that's basically that is a thing that basically applies to all genres, all places. And now make no mistake, there are lots of cool images here which are pointing to days of history with torture, demons, all kind of weird barbarism. So really cool imagery here to go with these lyrics. As you can notice, this is rather thick booklet with very graphic content. Not obviously for those who are young and innocent, but more like elder people in extreme metal. Nothing new as such, I guess, but in my opinion, these kind of imagery, which is very, very thoughtfully chosen for the booklet and all that stuff, I think it creates a lot of more interest towards the band. So I'm just gonna browse these pages while I talk nonsense, so you get the idea of these images and the band. And here is finally the lineup. A couple of these guys, these two in particular, are also members of Varatron, but all these members in the band are no newbies. So this is an interesting band. It's kind of a new, but at the same time it's also made sort of a scene veterans, if you know what I mean. Here we have the band's Metal Archive side, which is obviously listing both full-length albums, 10-1 EP, which I haven't heard, and all these members obviously. So you can see all these guys are members of other bands. No need to go more in depth with that, but you have to understand this is some kind of a power group, if not even really a super group, considering that none of these guys except one, the vocalist himself, is a long-time veteran of the whole Greek scene. Now this is Magnus Venator, the newer album, which has 41 minutes of music, 9 tracks, and as you can see, this is kind of going in the mythological deaths, not deaths, and it has interesting topics here, not your typical black metal titles so much, and I guess the same kind of ideas apply to this older album as well. So these are not the kind of titles which are very basic satanic topics and so forth. Anyway, that's about the album tracks or titles. Here you can see how it's themed lyrically: occultism, sacrilege, magic, satanic topics. And this is what Katavasia is all about. I mean, it's kind of a Greek black metal with the kind of filter that is so much different from your typical Nordic black metal with kind of a winter, darkness, cold and all that stuff. And it would be kind of funny if a Greek band was actually all about that, because obviously being a country in Mediterranean area and lots of history, way more than any Nordic countries. I mean, it's totally different approach what these guys are having. Now, musically also, like so many other Greek bands, Katavasia is all about creating their own sound through this kind of a Greek mindset. And that is kind of a more atmospheric, more melodic in nature, more kind of epic sounding, but not so grim, violent, and maybe necro sounding as so many Nordic black metal bands, especially the ones coming from Norway, Sweden, and I guess Finland in so many ways. So obviously, whereas Nordic countries have the kind of a grim, cold sound, this is very much going closer to what Rotting Christ at least was years and years ago. So a lot of melodies, lots of keyboards, a lot of kind of epic parts, which are almost like the Greek equivalent to what Bathory was doing when the transition phase from this raw first wave black metal towards the Viking metal came. That is, I think, albums like Blood, Fire, Death. So lots of these kind of epic elements. And that is kind of like very different from people usually think about black metal. Then again, if you go old Greek black metal, it's not that different. Actually, Katavasia is like a combination of these older Greek black metal bands as well as the new sound. That is, the sound is so much more modern and powerful and kind of clear, making these different beat guitar riffs or synths or drums more kind of clear sounding, but not sacrificing anything on the go. That is, in my opinion, they're picking basically the best elements of both worlds and creating their own sound with their own kind of songwriting, and not being so hasty about it. I mean, there are lots of bands which consider that black metal is like Marduk. Most of the songs on any given album, well, I know Marduk has done mid-tempo parts, but don't get stuck with that idea. I mean, so many bands are about having fast tempo and having this kind of element of violence always present there. But Katavasia is like proving like, no, you don't have to do that. You can have these mid-tempo, even kind of a slow tempo parts, and just enjoy the moment, not rushing, but, embracing the kind of a weird, unseen forces or moments of the occult, the mythologies and all that stuff. So it's more like taking a look at the sea while nothing is actually happening, but inside your mind, versus just pounding the boxing sack with like, hey, this is violence, this is a fight, this is a murder, or something like that. I don't know if my ponderings and musings make no sense at all, but what I'm trying to say here that I kind of like how Greek bands are so often doing their own kind of stuff. And Katavasia is an interesting addition to that, because it's so much doing like the old school way, and yet at the same time it seems like timeless and very much modern. Now, both of these albums are in fact very much alike. So even though 5 years difference, it's not like the band has changed too much. And this is obviously good news for those who just happen to love the first album. In my opinion, Magnus Venator is a little bit better, but the difference is not that big. I mean, it's clear that the guys are the same. Even if you take a look at this lineup image, you can see that all the guys, except one guy, have been present since the very first day. And it seems that since the core is the same, obviously the music hasn't changed too much. But in my opinion, the new album is a little bit more kind of diverse. I mean, there's more interesting details than with the first ones. But really, they are kind of like carved from the same stone, just with a little bit of evolution. And I mean, in my opinion, that is a good thing. So everything is much like with the first album, just a little bit better this time. So definitely not for everybody. I mean, there are people who will feel that Greek black metal is not kind of too much like Norwegian black metal. And for those, hey, bad news, this is not for you. But those of us who have embraced black metal in 3 or actually 4 different decades now. That is, if we consider 2020 to be the first start of a new decade. In my opinion, it's all there in various formats, various ways, and in my opinion, both of these albums are nice. But I would say the newer one is a little better. So kind of what the classic thing would be here in these duel reviews. Which one is better? Which one to go first? I feel inclined to say go with Magnus Venator. It's a little bit better. And if you like that a lot, it's very likely that you will like the first one as well. Then again, if you start the other way around, there's a room for improvement. So whatever way you want to go, you will have the good music there present in any way. And obviously, you want to listen for yourself. There's a link provided in the description box. So go to take a listen, and I hope what you will hear. This is all from Rauta. Take care, and see you soon with more reviews coming your way.